Hello again from Green Island Gardens. It's a beautiful late summer day, time of year when a lot of people's pot displays will be probably going past their best. So today I'm going to tell you the plants that I would choose if I had 10 decent sized pots for my garden, my patio or terrace or whatever. The 10 best plants I would consider planting in the pots. I don't believe in filling my pots with bedding plants. It's costly, it's labour intensive. You have to keep deadheading them, you have to water them every day through the summer. So really quite a trial. And then when you get rid of them, when they finish flowering, you've then got empty pots for the winter, or some people choose to fill them again with winter flowering pansies or some other winter bedding plants. But for me, the container and the plant in it should be much more in proportion in size. The whole thing should be better thought out, and it should add to the decor, if you like, of your garden. So the pots for me, when you decorate a terrace or a patio, they're like the ornaments, the finishing touches in the garden. So a bit like a room. If you were decorating a room, you've done the walls, the floor, you've done the curtains, and then finally you add in the ornaments. And the pot plants are like the ornaments. So the lamps, the vases of flowers that people put in when there's visitors coming to stay, photographs, all those sorts of things, but they're carefully considered so that they coordinate well with the overall picture. My number one plant for growing in pots has to be acers. Virtually all the Japanese maples make really good specimens to grow in pots. Some of them I would choose over the others, maybe the slightly slower growing ones. So this one in particular, Acer Shirasawanum aureum. This lovely golden bright yellow leaf as it comes into leaf, and then it does eventually mature, but only very recently, to this dark green colour. And then the leaves will colour. You can see them just starting to colour here, and they'll go a nice rich orange colour in the autumn before they fall. This Acer makes quite an upright specimen, so it doesn't take up too much space. It's also quite slow growing, and it doesn't really like full sun. So the golden, bright golden leaved varieties, I would suggest not growing in full sunny situation. But you can see how large a tree we've got growing in this pot, which is a good sized pot, but in relation to the size of the tree, it's not that big. So you can grow acers to really almost to their maturity by growing them in a pot. So suitable for a really small garden. But in terms of maintenance, the more you feed it, the quicker it will grow. So I tend not to feed my acers in my pots, and effectively that bonsais them so they don't grow too quickly. This one is getting to the point now where it is almost too big for this position and the pot, just in visually in proportion. It's a bit like having a vase of flowers, and the size of the plant in the top should bear relation to the pot. And if you've got a huge, great big bouquet of flowers, you're not going to put them in a tiny jam jar because they're going to topple over. And that's almost the effect we've got here. So this one is pretty much ready to come out of the pot, but it's been here maybe 20 years. So I've had a good long spell of enjoyment from it in the pot. Other varieties of acers I would suggest we'll go and have a look at in a moment. But as I say, virtually all the Acer Japanese maples are suitable for growing in pots. So we looked at Acer Shirasawanum aureum growing in a pot, but this is one of my absolute favourites, completely different shape and a much smaller plant. This is Acer palmatum Shaina, and you can see a much more rounded habit, tiny leaves, well dissected, not like the dissectum ones, but finely divided, but small petite leaves in this lovely bright red colour. They come in the spring, and then they mature to this lovely purple colour through the summer. And then in the autumn, as if overnight, the whole thing is transformed to this burning, bright crimson red bush. Beautiful, glowing in the sun, the leaves there. And it will stay like that for about a month before the leaves finally go at the end of October. This one is probably getting to the point where it does need to come out of this pot. It's probably been in here the best part of 20 years. I could prune it back, but I think I'd rather take it out and start again with a new one. But for a plant that I open my windows and I see in that pot 12 months of the year, it just gives me so much pleasure for absolutely no work in return. It doesn't seem a fair trade, does it? So the best climber that I can recommend for growing in a pot, so if you've got a terrace or a balcony even, or a little patio with not much soil, and you've got a fence or something unsightly to cover, this is the best plant, Trachelospermum Jasminoides. I mention it in a lot of my videos, and in fact we have a whole video dedicated to this plant alone. It comes in my top 3 all-time plants, and certainly the best climber in my opinion. It's evergreen. It clothes a fence or wall right from the base right up to the top. You don't get a bare trunk and then the thing trying to climb and go over the fence and flower on the other side. It produces lovely white scented jasmine-like flowers, hence the name Trachelospermum Jasminoides. These flowers start at the end of May, and we're right at the end of September now, and it's still producing these gorgeous flowers. In the summer, the scent that is emitted in the evening and even through the day is really almost overpowering. It's absolutely gorgeous. So evergreen, self-clinging, easy to maintain. Literally just take a hedge trimmer to it in the spring and clip it back as far as you would like, and it won't resent you at all for it, and you won't lose the flowers. If anything, they'll come just slightly later than normal, but that's not a problem. And the other bonus, if you grow it on a nice south-facing wall, you will get some nice autumn colour when the leaves will turn a lovely bronzy red colour, and then miraculously next spring back to green. So the best climber you can have in a pot. This one we've had here for a long time, and it's still really going very healthily. We just give it a handful of multi-purpose feed in the spring, water it once or twice a week, and that's all it needs, literally. Epimediums are another plant which are great for growing in pots. Chiefly grown for their foliage effect, this one is Epimedium pink champagne. It has these beautiful leaves, quite large in size, and they appear after the flowers in about April and May. And they come in blotches, red and purple, right through to maroon. Beautiful colours. They mature to green finally by the end of the summer, and then in the autumn they colour. You can see them just beginning to do that now. Some of these other ones are a few weeks ahead, but this is a really good one. And then, as if by magic, new green leaves come back next year. The flowers on this one peak through March, April and May. Lovely shell pink flowers with deep red centres. And this one goes on flowering for a really long time. It may even throw up a few flower stalks in the summer as well as an added bonus. So you can see a really nice foliage plant here, nicely in proportion with the size of the pot. And you can always add in some bulbs, as you can with all of these shrubs that I tend to grow in the pots, just to give you a sparkle of colour just from various months through the year. So you could easily pop some snowdrops in here in the spring, and you wouldn't have the foliage at that time, because in February I will come and just cut away all these leaves in order to show the flowers as they come back in the spring. So yeah, epimediums are great for growing in pots. So another plant I would fully recommend for growing in a pot is this lovely Nandina Domestica Firepower. Just to my left here, you can see a clump of 3 that we planted about 3 or 4 years ago, and they're doing superbly in the garden. It's a lovely rounded bushy evergreen shrub, and it has this beautiful colour almost all year long. The only time it doesn't look this fiery red is in August and September, when it produces its new growth at the top, which looks a sort of sickly green colour for a few weeks before it just starts to mature to this lovely red colour. Again, we have another YouTube video dedicated purely to Nandinas, so I won't go into too much detail about them now, but you can see excellent for a pot. They do colour better in slightly acidic soil, so if you haven't got the right soil for them, it's a really effective way of growing them in a pot. So great plant for 12 months of the year interest. You might not think of grasses as being the obvious thing to grow in pots, but actually this one, Imperata cylindrica rubra, the Japanese bloodgrass, makes a beautiful plant for a pot. It comes up with these lovely bright green leaves tipped with red, which intensifies through the summer, and they last right through the autumn and the winter, giving this lovely splash of colour, lovely contrast to all the other greens you might have in your collection of pots. and with their strappy-like leaves, lovely contrast in shape and texture as well. Again, one that it might not be fully hardy, but we grow this out in the garden and we've never lost it, even though we had winters down to -10 and -15. But I always keep a bit in the pot in the polytunnel or the greenhouse as an insurance policy. But they make great specimens for the tables out here on our patio. There are a lot of salvias that people grow, often labelled not fully hardy, and this is one of them, but it is one that I would consider a really good specimen for growing in a pot. I grow lots of Amistad and other ones out in the garden and leave those, they're absolutely fine. But this one, Cacalifolia it's called, Salvia Califia, and it has these gorgeous tubular sky blue flowers right through from July, and it will carry on right to the last frosts. The leaves are really, really attractive, this gorgeous sort of triangular shape and distinctly veined, really pretty, and you can see just the succession of flowers waiting to come. Also very good for insects, the bees love them, and you can see this one has done, if I can get it out, this is the growth it's produced for us just this year. So you can see it makes quite a nice spreading specimen, but with this group of plants here, really, really effective. So we're in the Japanese garden now, and you can see on this step here in front of the windows, we've got a lovely collection of pots. The pots are not too dominant, but we've got contrasting shapes and textures of the leaves and the colours as well. It's October now, so there's not that much flower colour, but we've still got quite a bit. But as I say, lots of structure, and it's really important for me that the pots are going to perform for 12 months of the year. One of my favourite plants for growing in a pot is this. It's called Tiboa Viliana. It comes from South America and it's called the glory flower, and it has beautiful, large, four-petalled, deep purple flowers that usually come from late summer right through the autumn and to the harshest frosts. You can see these buds are beautiful red velvety things, and even the edges of the leaves are beautifully coloured, and some of the leaves colour in the autumn. This is quite a young plant, it's still very vigorous. At maturity it will only get to 2 or 3 metres, but in a pot it stays much smaller. I prune it back every spring, but the important thing is you do have to bring this one in, so it's ideal for a conservatory or a really light room just to keep it frost free over the winter. If it does get cut back to the base, don't worry, don't be in too much of a hurry to chuck it out, because I've had some that I thought I've lost even in the greenhouse in the coldest winters down to -15, unheated greenhouse, but by June they were sprouting from the bottom again. And if I'd been a little bit hasty, I might have ditched them to the bonfire in May, but that would have been a mistake. So as I say, lots and lots of flowers, long flowering period, these lovely velvety leaves, and an excellent plant for a pot. Next to it, we've got this lovely Australasian plant, Polygala dalmasiana. Now this is evergreen and it flowers for 12 months of the year. It's a fantastic plant. The books say that it is fully hardy, and I have tried it outside. Unfortunately, I chose one of the coldest winters and I lost the one we had outside, but it does send up new growths from the base and suckers, so you can readily take new plants from it and keep some as an insurance policy. I will try it outside again, and I suspect the reason I lost it was because it was such a small young plant. But you can see these lovely pea-shaped flowers, purple, and they literally go on for 12 months of the year. If it gets too big in its pot, it responds really well to being cut back. So again, an excellent specimen for a pot. Completely low maintenance, no pests, no diseases, no maintenance required. Now just over here, this one might not look that stunning, but it's an absolutely beautiful plant. It's called Diosa Heaven, or Breath of Heaven. Dios meaning the Greek for divine, and osmi meaning scent. And if I just rub my fingers on the leaves of this plant, that beautiful, herby, spicy, sweet smell will stay with me for the entire day. It has evergreen foliage and really nice contrast with a lot of the other leaves we've got here. Look at the contrast there with this little camellia. It produces masses and masses of pale pink flowers, usually late winter into spring, so a good long flowering period. But I grow this one for the scent really and the contrast of the foliage. And in this little collection, you can see here, as I said, lots of contrasting leaves. This one's really dramatic. Now this one I'm going to pull out just to show you a bit more. This is Aeonium and it's called General Schwarzkopf. It's a succulent, a subtropical plant, native to the Canaries and the Atlantic coast of Morocco. And it has these huge, great big water retaining leaves, so excellent for a really dry, sunny spot. You can see it's growing up on this tall stem, and sometimes people grow these and they get so top heavy that eventually the pot just topples over. When that happens, I literally come and take a knife to the stem, chop it off and stick it into a new pot. And similarly, you can see these little baby ones emerging from the base, which is very exciting because, again, just chop them off at the base, stick them in a nice pot of free draining compost, and you've got some lovely new plants. As I said, it does need to be kept frost-free, this one, otherwise you will lose it. But a lovely plant, again, a real showstopper, a real contrast with colour and texture in the foliage, and they do produce some flowers as well, although I don't get too excited by those. But a lovely, low maintenance, easy care plant for a pot in a sunny position. Now we have, oh, there's another lovely pot of Imperata we've got there, you can see. Doesn't colour quite so well in a shady spot, but nevertheless a lovely contrast in foliage. And then next to it here, this is a lovely shrub. This is an evergreen camellia. It's called Camellia rossthorniana cupido. And I was first drawn to it actually by the little buds and the red leaves on it. It starts producing its buds in the autumn, and right through the autumn, Christmas and the spring, right through into March, April time when the buds actually open, we've got these pretty little red buds. It's so delicate. The leaves are tiny. It has this lovely weeping habit and it doesn't get too big. So another really, really good one to grow in a pot on a nice sheltered spot. This is another lovely evergreen shrub. Beautiful green glossy leaves, and look at the new foliage on it. Bright, bright red. It's called Eugenia uniflora etnophyre. Bit of a mouthful. It comes from South America and I like it just for the foliage, as I say. Somalian brush cherry is the common name for it, but it does also produce lovely brush-like, bottle brush-like white creamy flowers in profusion in the summer. And these are followed by berries that start white, go pink, deep red, and then finally bright, bright purple, which are normally then prominent through the autumn. So it gives you a long display of different colour, different features, as well as being a really nice foliage plant that's there for structure all winter through. The books will say it may not be fully hardy. This one is looking a little bit truncated because last year we left it out and it went down to -8 here, and some of the top growth did get burnt off, but I chopped it all back and lo and behold, it's produced all this growth on it is all this year's. So it can tolerate a lot lower temperatures than you might think. I have got another one in a small pot here, which I will just show you. There's one of the flowers, a last fleeting flower that's left there, this sort of spidery brush-like flower, lovely white thing. And then here we have some of the berries forming. You can see they've gone through their sort of green and white phase, they're turning pink and they'll go deep red and then finally bright purple. So beautiful, beautiful shrub. So I hope that's given you a few ideas for trying a few different plants, more shrubs or grasses or trees in pots that you might not necessarily think of. It will give you a much lower maintenance collection of pots for a much longer season of interest without having to put the work in. Thank you very much for watching once again. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.